Okay, now we're ready to do some sanding. You should always sand your wood before you assemble all the parts, because sometimes it's hard to sand once parts are already glued in place. It's hard to get up into the corners and so forth. So this is a real easy project for sanding. I use like a 180 or a 150 grit paper, and I cut it into quarter sheets like this, and I like to bend it in half and maybe again in half, because that gives me a nice easy piece of sandpaper to handle. And then I'm going to go across the face of the wood a little bit, just to make sure that I scrub the machine marks off. And then I'm also going to sand the corners nicely. They're rounded already, but if you sand them, they will be smoother, because there are some probably little chips or roughness in the wood, in the grain. I can feel it, that it's rough here on the end grain like this, but if I go across it with my sandpaper, it becomes really smooth, silky smooth. So do that for, take your time and sand the whole thing so it feels very smooth. Also, you want to sand the other parts a little bit. This bridge clamping piece is very sharp on the edges, the corners of it, and so I usually knock off that sharpness like that. Just hold it at an angle and run the sandpaper back and forth on it, and maybe a little at each end. Take off the sharpness of all the corners. And on the bridge too, you can do a little sanding. You might find it a little bit rough here or there, maybe on the ends, and you can kind of knock the sharpness off the edges at each end also. The flat part is going to be glued down, so you don't need to sand that, but the top part should be nice and smooth. And once you get those three parts sanded, we're ready to glue the bridge in place, like on there.